Hello students, welcome back to your chemistry class. Your PT1 course is already completed. Now I'm going to start your half yearly course. I hope all of you have understood PT1 chapter and you have completed reading question answers also. The chapter which is required for your half yearly is air around us. So let us begin. Introduction. What is air? You know, air we cannot see, but we can feel air. Air is very essential. Without air we cannot survive. But actually air is not a pure substance. Air is a mixture of several gases. No living things can survive without air. We cannot see air, but we can feel its presence when it starts moving. You see, moving air is also called wind. When wind blows, we can see some differences. In our homes, when we turn on the fans during summer season, the blade of the fan moves, and along with that the wind also moves. And because of this movement of wind, we can see our books pages are fluttering. So from this activity we can understand that wind is moving, and due to that our books pages are fluttering. Moving air is called wind, which is very useful, but high speed wind can be dangerous. Moving air is useful because moving air helps the windmill to move, and the windmill moves, and thus we get electricity also, and many other purposes. This windmill is very good, very essential. So moving air is very useful, but high speed wind can be dangerous too. That means when the speed of the wind becomes too high, then it is called storm. So storm can uproot our houses, trees, and can damage other properties also. So it is told that high speed wind can be dangerous. Properties of air. Air is colorless, tasteless, and odorless gaseous substance. Air is colorless. That's why we cannot see air. Air is everywhere on the surface of the earth around us, but we cannot see air because air is transparent and it does not have any color. Tasteless. Air is a mixture of several gases, but we cannot get any taste of air. Air always goes inside our mouth, but we are not getting any taste of air. Air has mass. Mass means the amount of substance, material present in an object. Air dissolves in water. That means air is soluble in water to some extent, and this dissolved air is utilized by the aquatic plants and animals to carry out their respiration process. Air can be compressed. That means air can be pressed from different sides or from all sides, and this compressed air is utilized for filling up the tires of different vehicles. We will now perform an activity to show that air occupies space. That means air is present everywhere around us. For this, we will take an empty bottle. This bottle is appear to be empty, but this is not actually empty. We will show this by performing an activity. For that, we require some water which is taken in a vessel. Now, this empty bottle we will put in the water kept in this vessel in inverted position. See, water is not entering into the bottle through the mouth. The mouth I have dipped inside the water kept in the vessel, but water is not going inside the bottle. Now, this is because of the fact that this bottle which is appear to be empty, it is not actually empty. It is filled up with air. For that, water is not getting space inside the bottle to enter, and thus water is not entering into the bottle. If I tilt the bottle little bit, then what will happen, you see, inside the vessel? See, air bubbles are coming out through the mouth of the bottle continuously, and water is entering into the bottle. See, water has entered into the bottle. This is because the fact that as the air from the bottle escapes, water starts entering the bottle. Actually, the space vacated by the air leaving the bottle is now occupied by water. From this activity, it is shown that a bottle which appears to be empty to us is actually filled with air. Atmosphere is the envelope of air that surrounds the earth. Is called atmosphere. Life is possible on the surface of earth because of the presence of atmosphere. So atmosphere is very essential. Atmosphere is the envelope of air around the surface of the earth. The atmosphere extends up to many kilometers above the surface of the earth. Many kilometers, if we go up from the surface of the earth, we get the atmosphere, and thus we get the air also. But it is also true that as we move up from the surface of the earth, the thickness of the air decreases. So, in the higher peaks of mountains, we feel suffocated. We require to carry oxygen cylinder with us. That means mountaineers carry oxygen cylinders with them because they get breathing difficulties in the higher peaks of the mountains, and thus they breathe in oxygen from the cylinders they carry with them. So because of the fact that in the extreme higher peaks of big mountains, The thickness of air or atmosphere is very thin. So it is the oxygen present in such places is not sufficient to breathe by the human beings properly. Atmosphere is essential for life on earth. As we know, oxygen is essential for the living things to survive. So air supplies this amount of oxygen which is required by the human beings and other animals to carry out the respiration process. So atmosphere, that's why it is told that atmosphere is essential for the life on the earth. Without atmosphere, without the presence of atmosphere, life is not possible on the surface of the earth. Composition of air. As we got that air is a mixture of several gases. So we should know the composition of air. Composition means the pure substances, pure gases which are present in air, it is present in how much quantity. That tells us that we can know from the composition of air. See, nitrogen is present in 78% in air. So nitrogen present in the highest amount in the air. Then oxygen is present in 21%. Carbon dioxide, water vapor, other gases and dust particles and smoke makes 1%. Now activity to show that air is a mixture of gases. We require one vessel with water, one candle and one glass tumbler. This is a glass tumbler which is looking empty, but it is not actually empty. It contains air. Air contains oxygen which supports burning. But the air is a mixture whose 78% contains nitrogen. We will show this in this experiment that about 4/5 of air contains nitrogen. We have fixed one candle in this bowl, and this water, in this water we have mixed sodium hydroxide or caustic soda, which will help us to create a vacuum inside this glass tumbler. This I'll insert in this vessel. And now the candle is burning because it is getting continuous supply of oxygen from fresh air. As soon as I will cover the candle with the help of this glass tumbler, you observe the candle will put off and the water will rise up into the glass tumbler up to this level. When the candle burns, then oxygen of air in the glass tumbler is used up and carbon dioxide gas is formed. This carbon dioxide gas is absorbed by the caustic soda or sodium hydroxide solution in the vessel. The absorption of carbon dioxide gas by sodium hydroxide solution creates a vacuum. Low pressure. Vacuum means low pressure in the glass tumbler. Water rises up in the glass tumbler to fill this vacuum. Water in the gas jar rises to above 1/5 part of the volume of air initially present in the gas jar. This glass tumbler contained air, as I told you. It was looking empty, but it contained air. Air contains oxygen. Oxygen is present in air in 21%. So this much area of the glass tumbler contained oxygen, which was used up for the burning of the candle for some time. And when this oxygen is used up, so a vacuum created by the presence of caustic soda or sodium hydroxide in the water, this vacuum is filled up by the water. That's why the water rises up to up to this level, and this much empty area still now, which is looking as empty, is containing actually nitrogen. So this 4/5 part of the glass tumbler contain nitrogen. Nitrogen is not a supporter of burning. That's why it is not helping in the burning of candle, and candle puts off. Components of the air. So out of this several gases, nitrogen is the most important, or nitrogen is present in highest amount in air. So let us know about nitrogen. The properties of nitrogen. Nitrogen is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas. Nitrogen is a gas which is colorless, don't have any color. Odorless means don't have any specific smell. And tasteless. Nitrogen is tasteless also. It doesn't have any taste. It is not essential for breathing. When we breathe in, we don't require this nitrogen. We require only oxygen from air. So nitrogen is not essential for breathing. Nitrogen is not utilized by us. So nitrogen is not needed in breathing. It neither burns nor supports burning. That means nitrogen do not burn itself, and it does not support burning. Nitrogen is not required by the burning process, burning of fuels. In this process, nitrogen is not required. It cannot help in the burning process. Nitrogen is very unreactive. Nitrogen do not react with the components or elements or compounds around us normally. So it is very unreactive gas. Nitrogen is needed by plants to make proteins. This is the important use of nitrogen. Importance of nitrogen, that is, nitrogen is required by the plants for their better growth. So plants prepare their proteins from this nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere. This is the most important utilization of nitrogen. Oxygen. Oxygen is very essential component of air. The properties of oxygen are: oxygen is colorless, odorless and tasteless gas. Oxygen is also, unlike nitrogen, it is colorless, odorless also, don't have any smell, and tasteless gas. Oxygen is essential for breathing. Oxygen is required for breathing. So without oxygen, no living things can survive. Oxygen supports burning. Oxygen supports burning. If anything need to burn on the surface of the earth, supply of oxygen is required, is must. Without the supply of oxygen, nothing can burn. So it is told that oxygen supports burning. Oxygen is slightly soluble in water. Oxygen is soluble in water and this dissolved oxygen is utilized by the aquatic animals and plants to survive underwater. Oxygen is very reactive gas. It is opposite to nitrogen. Nitrogen is very unreactive, but oxygen is very reactive. It reacts with the metals, non-metals around us. So oxygen is very reactive element. Oxygen supports life. Oxygen is required by the living things to survive. Without oxygen, no living thing can survive, because oxygen is required by us for the process of respiration. Under special situations, oxygen gas cylinders are used for breathing purposes. 3 such special situations are: a patient having breathing difficulties. That means a patient who is suffering from any disease and having breathing difficulties. That means his body is unable to take atmospheric oxygen from outside. Then he has to supply with oxygen with the help of oxygen cylinder. In some hospitals, you may have seen one tall cylinder from where oxygen is coming to the patients who is unable to take or breathe in atmospheric oxygen. Another situation where you can see the oxygen cylinder is a mountaineer climbing a high mountain. I have already mentioned that the thickness of the atmosphere, or the atmosphere, becomes so thin as we move in the higher peaks of high mountains. In that situation, the atmosphere is so thin that it is very difficult for the mountaineers to breathe properly. So they need to carry oxygen cylinder with them while climbing high mountains. They used to get the oxygen supply from the cylinder they carried with them, and they survive properly. We can see oxygen cylinder, use of oxygen cylinder in case of a sea diver. A diver going into deep sea also need to carry oxygen cylinder. This is because the dissolved oxygen which is present in water is not sufficient for a human being to breathe in properly, and moreover no free oxygen is present in water. So sea divers should carry oxygen cylinder with them while diving. Oxygen is necessary for burning. Without the supply of oxygen, a fuel cannot burn. So air is necessary for combustion. Combustion means burning. If we cover a burning coal with a vessel, it stops burning after some time. A coal is burning. If we cover the pieces of coal with a vessel, any vessel, a bowl or a tumbler, after some time when we uncover it, we will see that the red hot carbon is not burning anymore. This is because that the coal was getting continuous supply of oxygen from the fresh air. When we cover the piece of coal with a vessel, then the supply of oxygen from the fresh air is cut off for the cover, and thus Without getting the supply of oxygen, the coal stops burning. Another example, let us take, that is when the burning clothes of a person are covered with a woolen blanket. Sometimes if we see a person's clothes are burning, what should we do? We should wrap him with a woolen blanket, or roll him on the ground. We can do that also, and we can throw water also on them. But the simplest way is to extinguish fire, to wrap the person with woolen blanket. This cuts off the supply of oxygen to the burning clothes, and thus the clothes stops burning. Carbon dioxide and water vapor. These are also important component of air. Although these two components are present in a very small amount in air, but both are very important. Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a colorless and odorless gas, but it has some slightly sour taste. Carbon dioxide gas neither burns nor supports burning. It does not burn by itself and do not support burning also. It extinguishes fire. Carbon dioxide extinguishes fire. Carbon dioxide do not burn itself and does not support burning. Moreover, carbon dioxide is used for extinguishing fire, because carbon dioxide is denser than air, means heavier than air. So it covers the burning substance like a blanket and cuts off the oxygen supply to the burning substance, and thus it stops burning and fire gets extinguished. So carbon dioxide is a very good fire extinguisher. Green plants and need carbon dioxide gas to make food. For the process of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is necessary. Without carbon dioxide, plants cannot make their own food. Water vapor. It is the gaseous form of water. Water vapor is the gaseous form of water which is present in atmosphere. We cannot see water vapor also, but we can feel it, and we can prove the presence of water vapor in atmosphere by performing small activities. Take a glass full of ice cold water on the table and keep it for some time as it is without disturbing. After some time, we can see some droplets on the tumbler where we kept the ice cold water. These droplets are of air or water vapor which condenses on the cold surface of the glass containing ice cold water and condenses to form tiny drops of water. This shows that water vapor is present in atmosphere everywhere around us. Water vapor comes into air from two phenomena. These are evaporation and transpiration. Evaporation of water to form water vapor from the ponds, lakes, rivers by the heat of the sun. So, evaporation also produces water vapor which remains in the atmosphere as water vapor or steam. Another way of another way by which water vapor comes into air is transpiration. Transpiration is a process in which the leaves of the plant gives out the excess water in the plant in the form of water vapor, and this work is done through stomata present on leaves. So both these phenomena, evaporation and transpiration, contributes to the total amount of water vapor present in atmosphere. Water vapor is very important for working of water cycle in nature, because water vapor is responsible for formation of cloud and thus formation of rain. Dust particles and smoke, these are also components of air. So dust particles, if we observe a thin beam of sunlight which enters through the small hole in the window into a dark room, we can see the dust particles moving in the beam of light. So actually dust particles are present in that room, but we cannot see them because dust particles are so minute. They are floating on the air or atmosphere always, but we cannot see it. So when a narrow beam of light falls on inside the dark room through holes in the window, we can see the dust particles are floating on the air. Due to dust particles come into air from blowing of wind, traffic on the road, dusting at home, construction activity. We should normally breathe through our nose and not through our mouth. If we do so, then the dust particles present in the atmosphere cannot enter into our respiratory system. This is because our nose contains fine hairs and mucus which do not allow dust particles to enter into our respiratory system. But if we breathe through our mouth do not contain such kind of hairs and mucus. So the dust particles can enter into our respiratory system and damage our health. Smoke. Smoke is another component of air. Actually, smoke should not be present in pure air, but due to the pollution, air pollution, smoke has introduced into the or added into the air as pollutant. Smoke is a mixture of several gases and along with fine carbon particles. Smoke is harmful for our health. Smoke is produced due to the burning of various fuels like petrol, diesel, kerosene, etc. Smoke is produced from the factories and from the vehicles mainly, from the exhaust pipes and chimneys in the factories. These are coming out and getting mixed into air. smoke is produced by burning of fuels. Breathing in air containing smoke damages our health. Tall chimneys are installed to take the smoke produced in the factories high up in the air, so that the bad effect of the smoke can be reduced in the surface of the earth. Traffic policemen often wear masks to protect them from harmful smoke coming out from the vehicles which is moving around them, so that the harmful smoke should not enter into their respiratory system and it will be less harmful for them. Air is present in soil and also in water. The animals which live inside the soil get oxygen from the air present between the soil particles. Earthworms come out of the soil only during heavy rains. Earthworms remains in the soil, but when it rains heavily, the spaces in the under the ground which occupies air is now filled up with water, so they get difficulties in taking proper air by breathing. Many animals dig burrows and holes in the soil. These burrows and holes also make spaces available for the air to move into the soil, so that it can be used to obtain oxygen by the animals living there. Roots of plants get oxygen from soil particles. Roots of plants get oxygen from the soil particles. Water has some dissolved oxygen in it. So some oxygen is soluble in water to some extent, and dissolved oxygen is present in water. The water animals breathe in oxygen dissolved in water. So dissolved or soluble water is essential for the aquatic animals to take breath. The aquatic plants also use dissolved oxygen in water. Aquatic plants also require this dissolved oxygen. A glass of water. I have taken a glass of water and some soil. This is the soil sample with which we will show that soil contains water. Now, some of the soil sample I will pour in the glass of water gently. You observe what will happen after I add the soil in the water. I am pouring gently. See, big bubbles of air are coming out from the soil as I pour the soil in water. This air bubbles shows the sea. This air bubbles shows that this soil sample which I have added in the water contains air in between the soil particles, and this air is coming out in the form of air bubbles, showing that the sample contains air. If I stir it, then more air bubbles will come out. See, continuously air bubbles are coming up. Activity to show that water contains oxygen. Some oxygen is always dissolved in water. For that, we have taken some water in a vessel and it should be heated. I am heating it up using gas stove. You observe what is happening in the water. In your book, it is told that it should be heated by taking in a beaker and on a burner is used here, and the beaker should be kept on a tripod. But as we are staying at home, so we don't have beaker and all, we will do in a vessel like this. If we heat the water slowly and we will observe it carefully, much before the water starts boiling, you will see some tiny tiny air bubbles. See, the air bubbles are appearing in the inner side of the vessel. See, those are the air bubbles. Can you observe those air bubbles are appearing? See, just before the water is heated up nicely, so much air bubbles. These are air bubbles are produced in the inner side of the vessel. These air bubbles are coming up also. The temperature of the water is increasing. The air bubbles formed inside the water is also increasing, and these are coming up. See how nicely the air bubbles are forming. These are actually the air. These air bubbles are formed because of the air which was present in the water, and this air is coming out from the water forming air bubbles. This is because when we heat the water, the solubility of air in the water decreases, and this excess air is coming out from the water forming air bubbles. How is oxygen and carbon dioxide in air replaced? The oxygen of air being consumed by animals in respiration and in the burning of fuels is constantly being replaced by plants through the process of photosynthesis. The carbon dioxide of air being consumed by plants in photosynthesis is constantly being put back into air by the respiration of animals as well as by the burning of fuels by human beings. See, this is like a cycle, like water cycle. Okay, so oxygen is required by human being and other animals for respiration and also for burning of fuels. So for two activities we require oxygen, respiration and burning. We are consuming oxygen from the atmosphere. We are taking oxygen from the atmosphere. And this oxygen get replaced by the process whose name is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide and produces oxygen. This oxygen is released into air and thus the oxygen from the air is get replaced by the process of photosynthesis. Oxygen is required by the process of respiration and burning of fuels, and it get replaced by the process called photosynthesis. On the other hand, in the same way, carbon dioxide is essential for plants for making their food. So plants take carbon dioxide from atmosphere to make their food, and by photosynthesis. So the carbon dioxide of air being consumed by plants in photosynthesis is constantly being put back into air by the respiration of animals as well as by burning of fuels by human beings. Now the last topic, that is uses of air. Air is used for breathing or for respiration. Air is used for burning of fuels because oxygen is supporter of burning. So anything which has to be burnt require supply of oxygen. Without the supply of oxygen, nothing can be burnt. Compressed air is used to fill tires of various vehicles. Air helps in the dispersal of seeds and pollen of flowers. In biology, you may got dispersal of seeds. That means seeds from one place to other place, it is carried away with the help of air and water. So this is called dispersal of seeds. Pollen grains also dispersed from one place to another with the help of air and water. Next, air helps in the dispersal. Blowing air is used to run the blades of windmills. Air helps in the movement of yachts. So yachts will move through the water. Without the help of air, yacht cannot move. Air helps the bird, bats and insects in flying. Air plays an important role in the water cycle in nature. So that's all in this chapter. I hope you have understood. Go through the chapter line by line, so you will get the complete knowledge. Thank you for watching.